I honestly wanted to talk about a video game called Dragon Age: The Veilguard, about the political storm surrounding it for a couple of days now. It's only a couple of days old, but basically since release it's been very controversial because it's full of identity politics and it's about as subtle as a brick to the face. You get lectured on pronouns literally in the game. It's amazing. Now, Dragon Age Veilguard is a role-playing game, and it's a sort of the latest installment in a very well-received and acclaimed series, Dragon Age. I think it's one of the most well-known, or perhaps the most well-known role-playing video game in 2 decades or more now. And the first game was beloved pretty much universally. The second game less so, mostly because they rushed it very much and they had to reuse a lot of assets. It's not that the quality was low, it was just a rush job. The third one, you already could see wokeness quite a bit in there, but it was far more subtle than now. You could still say that the quality dropped, which is one of the side effects wokeness, because they often hire for identity politics, your gender, your race, your sexual orientation, your politics, instead of just picking the best person for the job. So you could see that the gameplay is very repetitive, it wasn't as balanced, there were problems. But all in all, it was an okay game. And I believe it sold very well, although just like with movies, what you notice is that the next installment in a series often sells based on the previous ones. So people had high expectations because they knew that unlike Dragon Age 2, the Dragon Age Inquisition, which was the third installment, received a lot of funding and a lot of development time. And so they thought, well, this is going to be the next great hit, right? Everybody was excited for it. There was a lot of hype. So, despite the fact that in my opinion it's far worse than both its predecessors, it sold very well. Now, Dragon Age: The Veilguard. It did not sell well. It did not sell well at all. I believe it's reached a peak of 80 or 90,000 players on Steam. Just so that you understand, other games... I believe Black Myth Wukong, which was controversial with the left because it wasn't feminist. It wasn't like anti-feminist or anything, it wasn't full of misogyny, but it just didn't push any feminist themes on purpose. They said basically we want to stay apolitical. And that game, I believe, peaked at over 2 million concurrent players instead of the measly 80-90,000 that Dragon Age: The Veilguard has. And Black Myth Wukong is, I believe, a Chinese game from a studio that nobody in the West's ever heard about, and that's the first big game. They don't have a name to fall back on. They just made a good game that became very popular. On the other hand, Veilguard, despite having funding for hundreds of millions of dollars, years, I believe 8 to 10 years of development time, and the biggest names in the industry behind it, and, inheriting a foundation of the lore and characters of the 3 previous games with a lot of beloved characters and names and places, everything you could possibly wish for. And it flopped. It wasn't a total embarrassing flop like Dustborn or Concord, which, managed to truly cater to nobody and just shut down very quickly. But it still flopped. It's an exceedingly underwhelming result. And even this result was based on people's good memories from the previous titles. And also based on the exceedingly glowing reviews that pretty much all the mainstream gave them. And also the censorship they did on YouTube for anyone who criticized them. That was truly outrageous. Anyway, I saw V is a YouTube content creator, much more popular than me. This is his sort of second gaming channel. He has a mainly political one as well. And he was reacting to a review of the game. Essentially, the way it goes is this. The review says, the game has a lot of problems, but wokeness isn't one of them. Criticizing wokeness is sort of a Trojan horse, it dilutes your criticism. And then V goes and says, well, you see, it's not correct to say that criticizing the game on the basis of being woke is a bad idea, because wokeness is sort of a culture. Just as if you took, for example, the Avengers movie, that's the example he gave, you can watch the video yourself. Criticizing the Avengers movie, if the next movie in the series is created by Bollywood, for being a Bollywood movie, you know, they have a certain specific style, and they will put their culture into it, essentially. And if you enjoy Bollywood movies, then that's a reason for you to buy. And if you don't enjoy it, then that's a reason for you to criticize, right? You're basically saying the Avengers series has been created in the West by Westerners so far. It has that particular cultural taste. And now you're giving it to a completely different culture to make it, and they will put their values and their sort of idiosyncrasies into it. And people who expected, you know, the continuity from the previous installments in the series are going to be surprised and perhaps disappointed by the new take. And that's perfectly legitimate. So this is why it's legitimate to criticize wokeness, because, you know, it has its own brand of doing things that not everybody likes. So it's important information and perfectly legitimate as a reason to decide not to purchase. And I agree with everything V said, but I think he left out the most important part. And I see it a lot with anyone in the sort of gaming space that's trying to criticize the woke takeover of culture, of video games, movies, books, comics, anything. So, the main problem is that wokeness is a hateful ideology. It's targeted against some types of people, mainly white people, straight people, and men. I'm an Israeli Jew. If you make a game chock full of Palestinian propaganda saying from the river to the sea, you know, just erase Israel and end all the Jews, guess what? I'm gonna hate it. Now, supposing you have an ideology that keeps saying that all the world's ills are due to straight white men, evil straight white men who are sexist and racist, and they cause everything bad, and then you go, we have to make the women look androgynous, if not outright masculine, to avoid the male gaze, and every villain in the series is a straight white male. Guess what? You're going to make angry the people who you're targeted. And the thing is, this is a fighting game, okay? Games like these have an overwhelming majority of male players. I know they say that majority of gamers today are female, but they include in that phone games. It's not the same thing at all, like people who play PC, and especially people who play fighting games on PC. These are still, by all accounts, predominantly male. So if you go and you target these people and you treat them like trash, they're going to go, I object because you hate me. I don't want to support you financially, and I don't want to consume what you're producing because it's offensive to me. So we can say, based only on ideological grounds, regardless of the side effects of this ideology, which I've enumerated, like the females looking very strange. In fact, I'd say that in general, the entire cast of Dragon Age, the Veilguard, looks uncanny valley, and it's the same for Dustborn and Concord. They're all ugly and they're all strange, and never mind. It's, yeah, bad writing, yeah, bad balance, yeah, the game might not work on release and need some patches, but all that's secondary. The main point is, your ideology hates me. You hate me. And they're not shy about it at all. If you listen to what they say on Twitter, the creators of these games constantly reiterate how much they hate people who are straight men, white, etc. And they, in their own words, you know, there's the Sweet Baby Inc. It's a consultancy group, basically trying to inject diversity and wokeness into video games. There's a lot of others, they're the most famous. And the leader of that group, essentially the CEO, I believe it was, she said that gamers are picky babies. And it's their job to make us eat our vegetables, which is to say to ingest woke ideology. And that they have to stop catering to us so that progress can resume. Guess what? I don't like being treated like a picky baby. If I go to a restaurant and I order steak and you give me salad and tell me, no, this is good for you, you should eat this instead, I'm going to just get up and leave. I'm not going to eat your food. It's the same thing here. You don't get to tell me what's good for me. Also, I remember Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, essentially saying you will inject wokeness into everything if you want money, because they are essentially the largest asset manager in the world, and they basically control a lot of the world economy, and they make it a hostile environment for businesses that refuse their politics, and they give sort of a leg up to businesses that, try and force their politics on the public. So if you decide to help Larry Fink force my behavior, I'm going to reject you on principle. Larry Fink doesn't get to decide what I do, think, or feel. Absolutely not. If you have a spine, in my opinion, you should reject him too. Don't let him decide for you what's right and wrong. Don't let him decide for you how you should act. Why should some billionaire get to decide how the society should be structured, sort of reshaping it in his image? Absolutely not. This is insane. Somebody with delusions of godhood, delusions of grandeur, doesn't get to decide how society is to be run. I'd say that the election of Donald Trump was a big middle finger to these sort of technocrats and globalist elite, the rich and powerful, who think that, they and their expert friends get to reshape society to their view of what's good and normal. And we should keep rejecting them on the merit. They're not our friends. They don't want what's best for us. They should not be trusted. Whenever I see wokeness in anything, I immediately reject it on principle. I don't have to find out whether the quality is good or not, although the quality is probably bad. But even if it is, one of these gems that sometimes happen. For example, people love Baldur's Gate 3. It's another video game, very successful. I believe even a year after release, it puts out comparable numbers of players on Steam to Dragon Age Veilguard the day of its release, which is when it's the most hyped and should have the most players. So it's absolutely a commercial success. I couldn't stand it, honestly. I just couldn't. There's so much immersion breaking. It's like just the little things, like you see a random male orc with pink hair, just, wandering about. And it's like, why? What is this? Is it the body language of all the characters? Everybody is just so sassy and aggressive and condescending. I just couldn't stand the game. But that's just me. I guess I'm more sensitive to these things. People said that, well, yeah, there was a lot of wokeness in it, but you could choose to reject it if you wanted. And the gameplay itself is good, so the game was successful despite its wokeness. Fair enough. If you enjoyed it, go ahead. I'm not going to tell you not. I'm going to reject anything woke on principle. And in my opinion, it's strange that other people don't, because the ideology is created to hate us. Like, straight men are the overwhelming majority of the customers for these types of games. Don't you feel like, I don't know, you want people who hate you to fail? Like, you'd be happy if the people who declare themselves your enemy by their own words and are proud of it and celebrate it, don't you think that they should fail? I think they should fail. I'd celebrate their failing. Whenever I see one of those articles that the leftists love to make in mainstream media and the mainstream game journalists about how the evil right-wing bigots have caused another studio to go bankrupt with their economic... I can't even say that word. The word for political violence. Yeah, whenever I see that, I feel happy, I feel like everything is good with the world. Excellent. Another person who's been poisoning my hobby with ideology that absolutely despises me for the way I am born, another one of these is now out of a job. Great. Nature is healing. And it's so strange to me that pretty much none of the content creators that talk about this issue dare voice this opinion, because it's all over the comment sections. It's all over the comment section of all the major sort of content creators that talk about these topics. How come they can't bring themselves to articulate? Wokeness is immoral. This extremist left-wing politics hates me. I want to see it torn down and gone. And if you make it like your job, literally, to inject this into my hobby, then I hope you're out of a job. Find something more productive to do with your time than hating me for a living. That's my take. Thanks for watching, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.